Hibiki is a character from the criminally overlooked Last Blade series, who didn't appear until the second game. It's true that her current fame is mostly due to her appearance in Capcom vs SNK 2, but Hibiki was already a unique character in all fighting games since her first debut. Fans love her, even though she wasn't present in the first game of the series. She was a guest character in the latest Samurai Shodown, yet she isn't even the main protagonist. But why is that? Is it because of her deep backstory? Is it her simple yet efficient move list? Is it her famous dual personas? Or is it because of the spectacular way her character could evolve in during that one single canon game? The answer is yes. Hibiki was the daughter of a famous blacksmith named Genzo. She lived with her father in a secluded area where she helped him with his work while training in the way of the sword on her own. Despite being a sort of an introvert, he was extremely skilled in his craftsmanship and thus was solicited by all sorts of swordsmen. Unfortunately, his fame was also the harbinger of his doom when his clients stopped being mere humans. One day, a man known as the Messenger from afar came to Genzo and asked him to forge a strong, unbreakable sword for him to use. The man was actually a demon and his name was Setsuna. To ensure that his request would be fulfilled, Setsuna cast a spell on Genzo that made him work unwillingly on that sword for 80 days without food or sleep. The sword was forged and Setsuna was happy with the work. Sadly, Genzo got extremely sick from exhaustion and passed away not too long after that. His last words to Hibiki were a description of the silver-haired man and the blade he forged for him. Hibiki was confused as to what her father wanted her to do, but one thing was clear: Setsuna was behind her father's death in a way or another, and so she set off in a long journey to find him. But just as she left her home, an old friend of her father came to visit and learn what happened. Hyo Amano, that was his name, was concerned about Hibiki and didn't want her to get involved with something dangerous. He decided to track her down and bring her home safe. Hibiki's adventure put her face to face against many individuals whom she had no choice but to fight in order to get closer to her target. She had no idea that Setsuna was already dealt with actually. A warrior named Yuki managed to defeat him and sent him to hell where he belongs. But Hibiki didn't know that and was getting more determined the more opponents she defeated on her way to find her father's killer. Amano succeeded in reaching her and tried to convince her to go back with him. However, Hibiki was blinded by her mission and even threatened him to step aside if he didn't want to lose his life. Reluctantly, Amano had no choice but to fight, using non-lethal attacks. At the end, he managed to subdue her and convinced her to abandon her pointless quest. Once home, she visited her father's grave to let him know that she didn't find Setsuna, but that she had learned a lot in her journey. She told him that she'll travel again to explore the world, but he needn't to worry since she had a strong ally on her side. Although some say that her story didn't end so positively. Some say that Hibiki's search for Setsuna changed her for the worse and transformed her irreversibly into a bloodthirsty fiend. She came to realize that spilling blood was actually a lot of fun and becoming the best swordsman was her calling in life. That's what she said at her father's grave when she went back to visit him. And of course, Amano wasn't there with her, because she most likely killed him too. Her purpose in life was to travel the world, eliminate a bunch of master swordsmen, and hopefully find and kill Setsuna. Her story didn't end there, however. Sometime later, Hibiki woke up to find herself inexplicably teleported to another time and era. She didn't understand how or why she was there, but something was drawing her to a specific place. Along the way, she met and fought multiple famous figures that she didn't fail to recognize as the legendary swordsmen she heard about. At the end of her voyage was a restless spirit waiting for her. She fought the ghost of Shizuka and defeated her. Once the spirit was set free, Hibiki sat at the cherry tree to relax for a bit. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself teleported back to her time. It may all have been just a strange dream, she thought, if it wasn't for the cherry petal that fell off of her shoulder. Hibiki is initially presented as a rather dull character. Her design is pretty basic and has nothing flashy going on with it, especially when we compare her to the colorful cast surrounding her in the character select screen. Frankly, she doesn't even look like a fighter, taking into consideration the way she is carrying her sword, which is wrapped in its bag most of the time. She looks more like she is on an errand to a client to give them their sword. This impression plays immensely in Hibiki's favor. Her opponents wouldn't realize that she is super strong and ridiculously efficient with the use of that sword until it's too late. In addition, she has a timid, hesitant personality, and although her moves are certainly theatrical and dramatic, ultimately her fighting style is realistic. It's not like she can throw fireballs or instantly teleports behind her opponents. Her fighting style is called the quick draw katana, the same style that Ukiyo uses. By the way, that explains why she is seeking his validation after their fight. It's a neat little detail. This technique is based on keeping the katana in its sheath and taking it out only during the slash before sheathing it back again. Hibiki also incorporates parries in her fighting style, which are extremely hard to land even for parry standards. At first, she was driven by a vengeance-like motive. She wasn't sure what she was supposed to do. Setsuna was responsible of her father's death, of course, but she didn't know what her father wanted her to do with him once she finds him. She needed answers more than quenching a thirst of vengeance. That's the explanation behind her hesitant demeanor, in the beginning at least. But as you know, her motivations slowly turn into something else, something more sinister. The vengeance plot took a backseat when Hibiki's victims start piling up. It all begins with her first opponent. If Hibiki finishes them with a fatal blow, symbolized by the victim's body cut in half, then she freaks out. She'd be in total shock and disbelief, incapable of accepting what she had just done. The second time, she'd still freak out, but she tries to comfort herself by saying she didn't have a choice. After that, it just gets worse. Her win quotes make it crystal clear that she is losing her sanity, and she even starts crying in her win poses. I may be overthinking it, but I guess at this point, the game is directly trying to tell the player to stop. This poor girl isn't going to withstand more of this psychological trauma. Be ruthless to a few more opponents, and Hibiki completely breaks down. Her personality makes a 180-degree turn and becomes totally desensitized towards her victims. The changes in her mannerism are subtle yet baffling at the same time. From a clear display of guilt and regret, she turns into a complete psycho, incapable of showing any sign of remorse or care. She even starts blaming her dead victims for being weak. Then comes her inevitable fight against Amano that can be considered as the last nail in her innocence coffin. If she kills him too, she'll show the last sign of regret. After that, the only expression on her face will be a creepy smirk. Icing on the cake, that change in personality affects the ending she gets. If she kept her innocence, then Hibiki drops her search for Setsuna and goes exploring the world with Amano. If she turns psycho though, she comes to realize that her purpose in life is to slay strong opponents. Amano is nowhere to be seen, and she is still after Setsuna. That was Hibiki in The Last Blade 2. In the latest Samurai Shodown, things work a bit differently with her personality's changes. For the most part, Hibiki's character is respected. It's pretty much the same as before, meaning she still has two personas, a good innocent one and a crazy murderous psycho. The one thing that I didn't like in Samsho is that her personality change doesn't occur naturally like in The Last Blade 2. It doesn't matter how she finishes her opponents anymore. She'll always remain the same Hibiki you selected, which brings us to how we can see her other persona. It's simple really, she'll be the good Hibiki by default, but if you pick her while holding the square button pressed, then the bad Hibiki is selected from the get-go. Though I must say, if the game loses the natural progression of her psychological state, it gains a lot in terms of the many details added to her character. There are so many stuff added that further accentuate the disparity between her two mental states. For instance, she has a unique win quote against almost all fighters in both her forms. Remember when I said that she seeks Ukyo's validation about her fighting style? That was good Hibiki. Bad Hibiki actually wants to follow him to the afterlife and fight him there again. My favorite is the one against Gongsun. It leaves no doubt about her utter madness. But there is one win quote that I find quite intriguing. The one against Genjuro, where she asks him how many people should one kill before they no longer feel guilt. It can be interpreted as Hibiki is still feeling some kind of remorse. Either that or it was actually a test and not a question. As in, Genjuro would answer with something like 50 and she'd be like, wrong, just 23 actually. Also, notice the change in her art, the subtle smirk and the blood on her face. She has a win quote specifically commenting on that. The best example of the disparity between her two personalities is seen during her interaction with Jubei. Good Hibiki doesn't want to fight him, but makes it clear that she will not hesitate to kill him if he stands in her way. Bad Hibiki is super happy that she'll get to slay one of the most famous swordsmen in Japan. She doesn't see him as an obstacle between her and her target. He is a target himself. The difference between the two Hibikis can also be seen during gameplay. It's true that her power, speed and moves are the exact same in both forms. The delivery of some attacks do sound different from a state to another. Like listen how her rage explosion changes. Good Hibiki is serious and determined. Bad Hibiki is just having fun. It's noteworthy that her facial expression also changes in many occasions, like during the lightning blade and the super special move. Not to mention her win poses that are a clear throwback to her version in the Last Blade 2. When you finish the game and after the credits roll, whoever character you were playing with will present the name of the game. You guessed it, even that had two versions depending on which of the two Hibikis you were playing as.
Samurai Shodown. Samurai Shodown.
Heck, even the announcer changes his Shobu to Hajime when Hibiki is selected. Yep, he got that from the Last Blade 2. Then there are her endings. Yes, she has two endings in Samurai Shodown too. Good Hibiki wakes up in her time and concludes that she was sent to that world to help Shizuka finding peace. Her sword is not just a mean to inflict harm, it can also help those in need. She puts the cherry petal that she got from the tree where she fought Shizuka on her father's grave and continues her journey with Amano. Bad Hibiki wakes up, finds the cherry petal and steps on it. During her visit of her father's grave, she interprets her strange voyage as a mean to fight and slay strong swordsmen. After all, that's the purpose of a sword, to kill. She decides to follow the path of vengeance against Setsuna, a path that will be tainted with a lot of blood. Fighting games are full of edgy characters with dark pasts. Anti-heroes with the sole purpose is to fight others and prove their superiority. But the reason of their personalities being like that is often relegated to their backstories, to events that happened off-screen, if explained at all. That is not the case with Hibiki. You, the player, get to witness her change. You accompany her as she transforms little by little into the monster she was initially seeking to destroy. No, actually scrap that. You don't just witness her descent into madness. You are one to blame as well. Yes, you, the player. You could have just defeated your opponents with non-lethal moves. No, you had to go out of your way and slice them in halves, something that can hardly be done by accident. You are responsible of what Hibiki has become, and I think the way how the game involves the player with Hibiki's story is genius. It's so subtle, yet impactful. It's also far from a dumb guilt trip that other games are desperate to shame the player with by making them kill a dog or something. Hibiki's story arc in The Last Blade 2 has an alternative route that drastically changes her personality, her whole character, and the outcome of her adventure. And it is so subtle, so naturally integrated in the game that it is easy to miss. I sure missed this the first time I played her campaign. You are certainly making a choice by the way you're playing her, you just don't realize it. The choice making in this game is very natural and organic. It makes sense. Remember, we're talking about a fighting game. This is something even most visual novels, a genre where decision making is at its core, don't have. That is the reason why Hibiki is such an amazing figure. That and the fact that her character had more evolution during the time span of one single game than other characters had in their entire existence across a countless number of games. And need I remind you that she is not the main protagonist. Her story isn't even the main plot of the game. The Last Blade series has an incredible main story with rich historical and mythological references. On the roster, they are oozing charisma, yet Hibiki managed to surpass them all and stand out as the most recognizable face of the Last Blade franchise. She is the best example to show that fighting game characters can be much more than simple functions or archetypes. Unfortunately, no one knows the aftermath of her adventure. There is no sequel to her story, since The Last Blade 2 is, well, the last Last Blade game. We don't know which version of Hibiki is canon, but maybe that's for the best. After all, isn't that what makes her so charismatic? Sometimes, the less you know, the better. I still wanna see that Last Blade 3 though. So, which version of Hibiki you prefer? Would you like to see a Last Blade 3? I'd like to read your answers in the comments. Special thanks to my patrons for their support. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and why not consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.